It's a curious notion, isn't it? The thought that those who walked this earth before us never had home in the way we picture it now. No cul-de-sacs, no picket fences, no familiar mattress waiting night after night. For our deep ancestors, life was motion. Before we step fully into their world, I'll do the simple thing that truly helps. If this kind of time travel speaks to you, please subscribe. And tell me in a comment where you're tuning in from and the time on your clock. Are you lying down, eyes heavy at midnight, on a quiet train between places, or catching a breath in the middle of your day? Wherever you are, come with me. Let's walk side by side into a night from long ago, air like knives, a low patient fire, and a small human circle inside an enormous dark. You might imagine them as aimless, just drifters pushed around by weather and luck. But the truth is sharper. Their steps were purposeful. Survival kept time, and the rhythm was relentless. Animals moved with the seasons. Plants appeared and vanished on schedules. Rivers fattened and thinned. Climate swayed from year to year like a pendulum. Stay too long in one spot, and the world simply moved out from under you. Food led the dance. You could say the stomach drew the first maps. Yet hunger wasn't the only compass. Think about resources. Cavemen conjured stone chambers and flickering torches. But caves were stopovers, not forever. Useful when they were warm, defensible, or dry, sure. But nothing around a cave was infinite. A small band could strip a valley of edible greens, startle the local deer into silence, and comb the forest for firewood in a few short weeks. Nature doesn't restock overnight. The choice wasn't between staying and leaving. It was between moving and starving. So they moved. Predators pressed them too. Our ancestors were clever, tough, coordinated, but they weren't the lions of that world. They were often the lunch. Staying put carved a readable pattern. Scents, scraps, habit. Movement was camouflage made of footsteps, long enough to rest and eat. Not so long that danger learned their schedule. They slipped away under stars while eyes watched from the tree line. Then there was the sky's mood. Prehistory wasn't gentle. The long ice ages weren't blocks of unbroken cold. They were restless, full of swings. A valley that fed you one generation could become a land of glass the next. People didn't wander because they were whimsical. They followed the only logic that kept children alive. Go where the land is kind. Leave when it turns cruel. We can see the traces, migrations stretching hundreds, then thousands of miles over generations, shadowing warmth, animals, and the promise of water. Movement shaped bodies and minds. Endless walking, hauling, tracking. This forges endurance. Humans are odd champions, not sprinters, but outlasters. Our legs, tendons, sweat, and lungs tell the story. Sedentary life would have broken them. Motion made them. It taught cooperation, planning, and patience. It wired memory to landscape. The roaming life was not a quirk. It was a blueprint. Follow the animals and you follow life. Bison, mammoths, reindeer, wild horses. Their migrations were moving larders, wardrobes, toolkits, lamp fuel. Lose the herd, lose the thread. Trails behind those herds crossed rivers swollen to fury. Forests tangled like nets. Mountains that burned the lungs. Weather that turned on a breath. Children were hoisted when legs failed. Firewood was scavenged on the march. Predators shadowed the same prey, closing in on the same opportunities. None of this was a scenic stroll. It was stamina with teeth. Yet movement sharpened attention until it was almost uncanny. People read the world with the intimacy of trackers. Crushed grass, a snagged hair, the arc of birds overhead, the wind's taste. They became walking atlases, routes carried not on paper but in minds. Rivers, too, choreographed survival. Water drew animals and plants, and humans clustered near it. But rivers are fickle friends, drought, flood, winter ice. Stay, and you could be swept away or left thirsty. Move, and you could drink again. All that walking didn't only sculpt bodies. It sculpted culture. Stories, songs, rituals, these were luggage that weighed nothing. Picture the evening after a brutal day's march. An elder's voice weaving the land ahead into tale. The spirits rumored to haunt a pass. The trick of reading wind through reeds. Movement stitched people together in memory. Oral tradition was more than entertainment. It was a survival engine. Words carried maps. Myths preserved timing. Songs set the pace of feet and the pace of years. Of course, trails crossed. Not every meeting was kind. Scarcity breeds tension, and sometimes the smart choice wasn't to fight. It was to angle away, take a different ridge, reduce friction by putting horizon between camps. But exchange happened too. New napping tricks, traded shells and pigments, partners joining across groups. Wandering didn't just spread bodies. It spread ideas, genes, and techniques. It built networks long before roads or markets, roots held together by memory and trust. There's a strange freedom in a life without stone walls. No deed, no fence, no need to defend a permanent pile of stuff. The home was the circle of voices near the fire, not the dirt beneath it. Safety came from movement, not masonry. Fragile, yes, exhausting often, but flexible, resilient, quick to pivot when the land changed its mind. Climate pushed hard. Ice advanced like a slow bulldozer, recarving rivers, scouring valleys, swallowing forests. People fell back, then forward, seeking places where life could breathe. Sometimes the earth erupted, volcanoes dimming the sun, laying ash like poison blankets. In those seasons, there were no good choices, only the next step. Walk until the sky clears. Walk until the grasses return. Walk until you can feed the children again. Because ecosystems are delicate, sedentary life would have collapsed under its own appetite. Overhunt a valley, strip too much wood, gather too greedily, and tomorrow bites back. Mobility spread the impact thin, giving the land time to mend. In its own rough way, roaming was sustainable. All this pressure sculpted evolution. Those built for distance, patient under hunger, clever at reading signs, those are the ones who made it. Brains tuned to memory and planning thrived. Navigation isn't just left and right. It's the imagination to predict a herd's next move, the discipline to leave before the woodpile lies empty, the humility to let the land overrule pride. Here's a tender irony. Movement also opened doors. A new valley meant unfamiliar stone, better edge, different fracture. A different coast meant strange shells, nets that made sense, lamps that burned longer. Fire wasn't always struck from scratch. Sometimes it was carried, an ember swaddled in ash, a small pulse guarded all day. Think of it, the continuity of fire, hand to hand, campsite to campsite, yesterday warming tomorrow. Travel demanded memory. Landmarks turned into language. The Tooth Ridge Hill, the river that forks like antlers, the cave painted with running horses. Stories stored coordinates. When groups met, news flew, routes that were safe, plants that healed, a herd that veered farther north than usual. In a world without writing, information was the richest trade good. And because people kept walking, knowledge didn't stagnate. It rippled outward. Movement shaped identity as surely as it shaped calves and lungs. People belonged to paths as much as to places. A seasonal round became a kind of homeland, a circuit of rivers, ridges, and coves known in the bones. Burial sites and painted walls became anchors of meaning. To return was to reconnect. To move on was to trust memory, to hold what the feet couldn't carry. Danger hummed at the edges. Big cats learned your routines if you let them. Smoke could summon unwanted neighbors. The smartest defense was unpredictability. Pick camps with intent, near water but not in flood's mouth. Sheltered from wind, yet with sightlines against ambush. Stay briefly, leave lightly. Pack only what matters. Improvisation was the craft. Fast shelters from branches and hides, hearths ringed with stones, tools simple enough to remake, precious enough to guard. Leadership existed, but it wasn't crowns. It was competence. The hunter who could read a valley's quiet, the elder who remembered the winter path that saves wood and lives. Direction was earned. Authority rose and fell with results. If a plan starved the people voted with their feet. Children learned by walking. No schools but the world, no desks but the trail. Track reading, plant lore, sky signs, tool making, the curriculum was constant and unforgiving. Stories were memory devices in disguise, warnings wrapped in wonder, directions framed as myth. A child who knew the tale knew the route, the season, the risk. Wandering also built empathy. You can't keep a group moving without caring for its weakest. Someone carries a toddler. Someone keeps the ember alive. Someone takes the night watch. Compassion wasn't a luxury. It was logistics. Still, the road tests bonds. Bands split when numbers swelled beyond what a valley could feed. Separation hurt. Reunion sang. Love had fewer objects and more presence. You gave time, strength, vigilance. Art flowered not despite hardship, but because meaning needed something to hold it. Caves turned to canvases. Hands and animals bloomed in ochre and charcoal. Portable symbols, beads, carvings, small figures, traveled easily, carrying identity across distance. Songs paced the march, soothed the children, welded spirits after hard days. Rituals didn't require temples. They needed firelight and a circle of belief. Step by step, those circles widened. There was no single leap out of Africa, just a million careful decisions, generation east, then Europe and Asia, then Australia's far shores. They met cousins, Neanderthals, Denisovans, sometimes clashing, sometimes blending. That too is in us now. Different lands demanded different answers. Cold meant fat, fur, and fire like a heartbeat. Heat meant timing, shade, and water wisdom. Mountains asked lungs and patience. Coasts asked nets and tides. The same species learned all of it. That's the power of motion. It trains for variability. And in that constant variability lay the seeds of what came next. By the time climate steadied, people already knew the valleys that cradled life best. They'd seen seeds sprout where camps once stood, plants returning on their own near hearths. They'd noticed patterns, remembered them, retold them. Farming didn't arrive as a thunderclap. It rose from layers of observation gathered on countless journeys. Even then, wanderers and planters coexisted for a long while, trading meat for grain, furs for pots, knowledge for knowledge. If you zoom out, the lesson is plain. Movement wasn't a detour on the road to civilization. It was the road. It shaped our bodies, our social fabric, our tools, our stories, our hope. It taught us to leave before we're trapped, to try the next valley, to carry a flame through wind and rain because someone ahead will need its light. And now, before we walk further, I'll repeat the small request that keeps this journey going. Subscribe if this kind of deep-time storytelling is your thing. Drop a comment with your location and the time where you are. It's wild and wonderful to see this little human circle stretch across the globe. We are the children of travelers. The map is in our muscles. The compass is in our curiosity. The road is still calling. Until next time, keep moving, keep wondering, and take